Hello, Ron Gerber, CEO of Angelbeat. So excited to have John Clay, the VP of Threat Intelligence with Trend Micro, one of the world's foremost security companies. I use them for my antivirus. They're a mainstay at our Angelbeat live and virtual events. What I wanted to do in this brief conversation is just hear from John some war stories, some insights on how John keeps all of his clients, many of whom he met at Angelbeat seminars, out of the headlines, keeping them safe, keeping their job secure, helping people get promoted, all that. John, why don't you at least start? Let's get a little bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, sure, Ron, and happy to be here. I have been in cybersecurity now almost 25 years, all with Trend Micro. So it's interesting is I've done a lot of different jobs within Trend Micro. The latest is VP of Threat Intelligence, which essentially means I work with our threat research teams internally. I help them to publicize and talk about what's going on in the industry. I do a lot of events like you were mentioning, a lot of Angelbeat events where I just educate the population about what's going on in the cyber world.
Got it. Let me ask you about ransomware, which is one of the more prominent cybersecurity threats. We hear what went on with the Colonial Pipeline. By the way, no offense to Colonial Pipeline, but they missed my last Angelbeat seminar. Now you see the risk. I'm not saying there's a direct cause and effect, but I will tell you, many of the companies that get in the headlines didn't come to Angelbeat. But maybe you can tell me what is going on with ransomware, what's going on in the world of the dark web where this is becoming so much more prevalent, and why does it still happen?
Yeah, Ron, it's been an evolution, unfortunately, with the ransomware itself. So, in the early days, they just ransomed files that they had encrypted on a machine, right? Usually, it was let's send a phishing email to an employee, and then we'll encrypt their files on their machine. It has evolved into just an amazing machine. You talked about the dark web. We are seeing the participants in the dark web collaborate together. The groups are specializing in the different parts of the attack even, and they come together and launch an attack. The attacks are not random anymore. They are specifically targeting these organizations. They learn about it. They do their upfront investigation about who they want to target, where they want to target it, why they want to target them. So ransomware, like I said, it started as a first generation really was just encrypt files. We're into now where they're doing quadruple extortion attacks. And when you see that, what they're doing is they are encrypting files. That's not they all do that. But prior to that, they're stealing data that they'll come back and say, hey, if you're not going to pay the extortion for the encryption, pay me an extortion fee for the files I stole from you first and foremost. The third level, the third encryption, or the third level that they're doing is when they do DDoS even now. So they're going to DDoS your internal system so you don't have access to them. And then the fourth one is where they're actually, after they steal the data, and usually some of that data is your customers, they will then go to your customers and tell them, hey, tell this organization to pay us the extortion, or we're gonna put your information out on the public realm. So it's really evolved. The other aspect is, and we talked about in the dark web, is access as a service is a huge commodity in the underground market today. And what that just means is that there's a new group of organizations that are doing the initial access into these organizations. They're very good at what they do. They almost can 100% guarantee they're going to get into an organization, and then they sell that access to all these different actors. It could be the actor group that's just going to steal the data first. It could be a ransomware group that is going to come in and launch their ransomware attack. Ransomware is interesting is that it is always almost the last event that happens in an attack, right, Ron? They're inside this network for sometimes days, weeks, even months. And once they've done everything they want to do first and foremost, then they launch a ransomware attack as the last way to make money on these organizations' attacks.
So that's a very interesting comment, because when I talk to people about ransomware, one of the immediate solutions is more from the storage backup. Okay, so if the cyber criminals are just going to encrypt your files, it's a raw pain in the neck, but just delete all the encrypted files and back them up. You lose a day of work. It's a hassle, but not a big deal. I think what you're revealing is a much more sinister environment where they're launching malware that could be almost like a Trojan horse, residing behind your firewall for months, gradually distributing data. So when they finally then launch the encryption, it's not simply the data backup that's critical. You now need to look at a whole slew of other reputation concerns, financial concerns, compliance violations.
Yeah, I mean, Ron, if you see ransomware inside your organization, your next step is that you have to identify how long they now have been in my network. What else have they done inside my network besides launching a ransomware attack? So, because the likelihood is that they've done a lot more inside that network prior to the ransom attack that you need to uncover and identify and figure out. And the reason why they're very successful is what they have done over the years is they've seen the nation state attacks that are very successful, right? We see that, and we've seen them in the news where, these groups are very well funded, they're very sophisticated, they know how to get into these networks and do what they want to do. Well, the cyber criminals who do it for profit, they saw this and they recognized that these tactics are very good and they work. So they adopted all these same tactics. And that's what you're seeing today is this evolution from going from, the script kiddies in the, spray and pray model where you just send out hundreds of thousands of spam mails and you hopefully, you get a 5%. Now like I said, they are going in, they are identifying who they want to target, why they want to target them, what's the motive here, how they're going to target them, when they're even going to target them, because maybe it's a time of day that they're probably more successful in attacking an organization. So it is, and it's a machine now. It is, and in the underground, they're buying and selling. Ransomware as a service, we saw with SolarWinds, right? That ransomware as a service model that's being sold in the underground, the dark side is a ransomware as a service group. They sell to their affiliates. The affiliates come in and do the attack, but they have all the tools that they need to make it a successful attack.
Wow. I suppose if I was a little more corrupt, which I'm not, I could set up a whole new seminar series called Devilbeat, not Angelbeat. We could do Devilbeat where we could have, God forbid, I'm not going to do this, but you could literally probably get sponsors from the dark web to promote their, not like security as a service, but ransom as a service. Yeah. It's bizarre.
And all those services are already sold in the underground, Ron. So like even exit strategies for your Bitcoin mine, when you receive a Bitcoin payment, how can I launder that very quickly to make sure that the law enforcement doesn't get access to it? They're sending those out. All those services are available in the underground, which is why it's becoming more and more successful, unfortunately, and why organizations are at a very difficult position today to be able to defend themselves.
So now everyone out there in the Angelbeat community is sufficiently scared because we now know the 4 levels of ransomware. Maybe you could share with us some insights, John, on, well, how does Trend Micro help organizations deal with this terrible situation? And the other thing, I'll chime in, and maybe you can comment on this as well, because we hear about this a lot, where the IT staff, small, medium, even large organizations, are continually challenged in terms of hiring cybersecurity experts to deal with this. There just aren't enough people out there. It's hard to get them hired. And we find that many end users who attend Angelbeat, who I speak to, say, they come to me, Ron, what firm should I go to? Because I need to solve this problem. I doubt that I can ever find enough people to hire internally to deal with this. And to be quite honest, even if I hire these people, I sort of like having a security firm deal with this because they will know what goes on outside my organization. And unless I'm a global company where I can see lots of different things, I almost would prefer to hire someone's services, not hire my own labor, because they will be more diverse and see a broader range of threats that will help protect me. But again, putting the hiring issues in the back of your mind, what do you do to help organizations when they come to you to make sure that they don't get in the headlines?
Yeah, Ron, and it really is a three-pronged approach, which is people, process, and technology, right? We're part of the technology side of that. We've been doing lots of investment into innovative technologies, innovative solutions over the years. Probably the biggest thing right now that we are working towards is our XDR, our extended detection and response, as well as our Vision One, which is really allowing an organization to manage multiple solutions across their entire network. So you have an endpoint product, you have a networking product that looks at the network layer, you have messaging, you have the web layer, you have the cloud, which is a big one now being targeted, right? And all of those are now becoming integrated so that we're sharing our threat intelligence across all of those different products. And then taking that and using our artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies to coordinate and collaborate all that data for an organization to be able to give them alerts that you can act upon, right? We all know that in the past you had alert mania, which you got alert after alert after alert, but it might have been something that you didn't need to really worry about. What we're doing is taking all that intelligence and using that technology to be able to identify the threats that are actually targeting you that you need to take advantage of or actually take direct action against. And so that's an area that we're seeing huge amounts of activity in, as well as our managed version of that. So our managed XDR, because like you said, a lot of these organizations just don't have the staffing. We have the expertise. We manage it. We can monitor our products inside your organization and alert you when we see suspicious activity or malicious activity, and be able to help you in those areas. We've invested in some new IR, so incident response process and people that can help organizations in that area. So it is happening out there, and we're trying to do them as much as we can. The challenge I still see, though, Ron, and this kind of comes, you mentioned war stories. This kind of comes from our support organization who gets contacted with a lot of our customers who are impacted. And there's only a couple of things that I see regularly. I get alerts on these all the time, and I ask, hey, what's the root cause of these infections? And it comes down to just a couple of things that we're starting to see more and more of. One is outdated products. So they haven't updated to the latest version of the product. They haven't updated the latest version of their operating systems and their applications. And so they get, and obviously, as you and I know, vulnerabilities are exploited all day long. So that's a challenge. Secondly, is a lot of those newer products have the latest technologies that we've developed to detect a lot of this stuff. And they aren't enabling those advanced detection technologies that are available in these newer versions of the product. So they're behind in two spaces, right? One, they don't have the latest version of the product, but now they haven't enabled the latest detection technologies to be able to minimize the risk of infection of those. The other one that we are seeing a lot of today is credential stuffing or credential attacks. So they're getting access to these administrative accounts that allow them to actually, one, they can turn off our security software, and they do that regularly when they get these accounts. You saw this with one of the recent vulnerabilities in the Microsoft Exchange platform, where it allowed them to actually create an administrator account, and then they could do whatever they wanted with that Exchange server. So that's another one where organizations who are utilizing traditional password models are getting hit and getting infected that way and getting compromised. So adopting a multi-factor, two-factor authentication process, that's outside of even our solutions. That's just, regular basics block and tackle type stuff that should be done now and not wait till after a breach has occurred. So those are a couple of things that we've seen regularly when we talk to our customers who have been affected by successful breaches.
I will tell. I got an email from one of the Angelbeat attendees who says, "I've got this old application. We want to move to the cloud. I've got some compatibility, so I'm just going to keep running my Windows 7 app." And I said, like, no, please don't. You'll spend all this money in the cloud and you've got an app that's been unsupported now for 18 months. Yeah. You shouldn't be worrying about the cloud. You should be worrying about getting.
Yeah, but Ron, as we both know, the challenge is a lot of these organizations, those apps work. Yeah. The technology is still available and it still runs their business, and they can't really take the time to upgrade to the latest and greatest stuff. So they are still using that. They are still using Windows, 7, Windows 8, whatever it might be. Yeah. Now you start introducing industrial IoT and IoT in this, and you're even worse off, right? WannaCry exploited the embedded operating system devices tremendously, yeah, because those embedded devices are running even XP still today. So yeah, that's going to be a challenge for a lot of organizations. The other aspect and why we are moving to that XDR and MXDR model, Ron, is that if you think about the attacks today, in the past, like I mentioned, they target the employee's device and then they're done. Today, it starts there usually still, but then they laterally move across the organization. They're going to go to your data center. They're going to go to your cloud. They're going to go across the network and find those business critical systems that are running your day-to-day operations. Because if I take those down, whether it's through a ransomware attack or a DDoS attack, you're more likely to pay the extortion fee, because you need to get those critical systems back online. So the attacks are going across the entire network. So the visibility for an organization to be able to see when attacks are correlated, the attack at the endpoint is part of an attack at your data center. And in the past, you never had that collaboration and that correlation aspect. You just saw the attack at the endpoint, and then somebody else saw the attack in the data center and had no idea that was a coordinated attack against you. So now we're trying to give the tools in place to be able to give that visibility and that information that says, yeah, it's part of the same attack, and you need to look at how to defend against it.
I've seen that from a couple of different organizations when they're looking at their individual point solutions that may have worked fine in a simpler world that was still a scary world. And a lot of these end-user organizations have a higher degree of comfort in trying to replace some of these standalone applications that work fine from other smaller vendors, and saying, that's what I tell them. I said, look, there are a lot of very strategic benefits of having one vendor who's credible, who have expertise across multiple areas, because it's going to make your life easier, because you don't want to run into any issues in handing off data or in compatibility, or be able to have the same systems to track the same kind of malware as it infiltrates. So it's interesting bringing up, because I've had, again, Angelbeat attendees ask me about some of the downside of trying to get a standalone product work in what's increasingly a very sophisticated and complicated security landscape. What about one other thing?
Yeah, I would just comment on that, Ron, is that, the SIM vendors and SOAR vendors are attempting to do that, and they've done a pretty decent job. The challenge is there's not a lot of standardization in our industry. We're starting to see that a little bit more with Styx and Taxi in terms of the threat intelligence side of things. But, one of the benefits, and I'll put a little plug here for Trend Micro, is that we are a vendor who has solutions that span the entire network and layer, and even to the cloud and all of that, right? We also have consumer products and products that are for small, medium, and very large enterprises. So we're unique kind of in the industry here that we have this capability still. We're still investing in all of those. We aren't offloading it to another firm or anything like we've seen in the past with some of the other vendors. So we still have that. We still do all of our development ourselves internally, and that's why we can also get all of our R&D teams working together and collaborating together so that these products will work in conjunction with each other.
Now, is one of the advantages, because as you said, you've got a large traditional consumer antivirus business and whatnot, does your threat research team benefit, or how do they benefit? Because they've got so many different data sources to track it. It's not just the enterprise sales rep calling on the Fortune 100. You're pulling together data from everywhere. And I would think that especially with so many people working from home, having consumer knowledge of what goes on in everyone's individual household is a wealth of information that's somewhat unique for Trend Micro to help articulate, because what goes on in the consumer world nowadays, especially again with work from home, has a lot of implications, and even in the largest of enterprises.
Yeah, you kind of hit it there, is that our researchers are able to pull threat intelligence across all of these different areas. So we aren't limited in obtaining threat intelligence just from an endpoint product. We're also obtaining it from a network product, from a mobile product, from a email-based product, a web-based product, a cloud-based products. All of that intelligence is coming to us, and again, we're seeing the threats that are targeting our customers across the entire range of where these threats are being targeted, all the different vectors and surface attacks and everything that is happening out there. And then, like you said, on the consumer side, even though a lot of people may say, well, that's consumer data, it doesn't matter about commercial. Well, reality is, like you said, the work from home stuff. We have some products that run on a bunch of the different Wi-Fi routers out there in the world, as well as we have our own networking home networking product. And so, like in 2019, through that technology, Ron, we saw 1.8 billion events targeting home offices.
How many?
Home networks. 1.8 billion.
Okay, I was trying to make sure that was billion, not just million.
It was billion. In 2020, it jumped from 1.8 billion to 3.8 billion events that we saw. So we're seeing attacks into the home network, out of the home network, what the criminals are doing. So it's a tremendous benefit for us to be able to obtain all of this threat intelligence and different ways that the organizations and consumers are being attacked. And we apply all of that knowledge to build better products over time. And that's really a benefit that we have.
You mentioned earlier about this whole industrial Internet of Things and new threat vectors. One of the things, and I'll date myself, with a lot of industrial applications in the past, they had things like ASICs, or application-specific integrated circuits, where you'd burn into silicon the firmware of the code, and it would never change, it would never get upgraded. That's how we worked, and worked fine. Or you call it things like, and then they had little other things like programmable logic controllers, where you could program them, but that was really the start of having software updates to your industrial systems. And now you can look at it from your cars, everything software upgrades. I mean, it's the scary.
It's software. Everything's software now.
And doesn't it, with everything software based, isn't there a greater risk that if everything has to be connected to the web, everything's got software being upgraded, there's got to be some security protocols to authorize that. All of that is dramatically increasing the vulnerability or the risk pathways for cyber criminals. Isn't that a big reason why Trend is doing so well, is because you understand the consumer side, you understand the enterprise side, you understand the data side, and you're also increasingly understanding the industrial IoT side.
Oh yeah, no question.
No
question about it. I mean, in Japan,
in
Japan, we have a number of smart factories already built out with our technology that we've been developing over the years around specifically for OT networks. You look at and you think about vulnerabilities. We invested in obtaining the 0-Day Initiative, which is a bug bounty program, and they routinely obtain vulnerabilities and bugs from all these different applications, operating systems. Well, they do their pawn to own event. They do 3 different pawn to own events now. One is their traditional up in Vancouver, which is traditional commercial operating system, commercial browsers, applications. But in Japan, they launched one that does IoT and mobile vulnerabilities. And then in Miami, they launched one that was specifically around critical infrastructure and IIoT and SCADA. So we're able to obtain through this program all these different bugs and be able to understand it. We have a whole team in Toronto that just looks at all these key vulnerabilities, and they reverse engineer the vulnerabilities to figure out what are the exploits are going to be. And then all of that goes back into our IPS products, but through filters that can block these exploits of these vulnerabilities. So yeah, it is crazy. And for sure, the OT, the convergence of IT and OT is happening faster than anybody wants it to happen, but it is happening. And you saw that with the recent attack on the gas pipeline, because now they didn't get access to the actual OT network, but out of a cautionary, they wanted to take that down as well because they weren't sure if it could pivot over there. And we've actually seen ransomware attacks that have been, because those OT networks are connected to the IT network, the ransomware through a worm technology actually infected the OT network, because there are for sure devices and systems that are running Windows in those environments, and it gets on there, and so unintended consequences of these attacks is what can cause massive issues for customers.
Got it. Before you scare us any further, but in an appropriate way, I want you to share, what do organizations do? How can I get a hold of John and his team? Maybe you could comment just a little bit on cloud and cloud security paradigms, specifically when people are looking at cloud architecture. I always like to break it out. There's what are the cloud providers, the AWS's, GCP, Azures of the world do, what do end users have to do, and then what's the role of third-party vendors like Trend Micro. Maybe you could comment on this shared cloud security model before telling the Angelbeat community, okay, I know I've scared you for a while. Let me tell you how we at Trend Micro can help you stay out of the headlines.
Yeah, cloud is certainly being adopted faster and faster. We saw with the pandemic even that a lot of organizations actually increased their investment in the cloud architecture and are rapidly moving there. And the reality is that the cloud is very secure. AWS and Microsoft Azure, we made a prediction that any attacks in 2021 that occur on a cloud infrastructure will not be caused by AWS and Microsoft Azure or Google, because they are very good at what they do, which is defending their architecture and defending their part of the shared responsibility model. Where the attacks are going to be is against the data, the customer data that is housed in those cloud architects. So the customer's responsibility is to protect their data and their applications that are running in the cloud. And so that's not the job of Azure and AWS. So that shared model is that you need to protect your stuff that you are building in that cloud infrastructure. So, and that's where third parties like Trend Micro come into play, where our Cloud One platform has the capability of protecting all the different parts of the cloud infrastructure that you're developing, whether that is your data sources, whether it's your applications that you're developing, APIs that you're developing to access a lot of the data inside the cloud architecture. The biggest challenge that organizations have right now in the cloud, Ron, is misconfigurations. The majority of the breaches that have been caused by misconfigurations of the cloud applications of the cloud infrastructure. And we can help with that. We purchased a company a couple of years ago called Conformity, where it actually can look at your cloud accounts, and if you make a change to your configuration and it violates some of the basic models there, it can alert you that, hey, you may have misconfigured this thing, and you can take action upon that. So there's a lot of ways that we can at Trend Micro can help you. I think, if you are developing a cloud or thinking about going into the cloud, definitely contact ourselves or one of the other providers out there, security providers, because we can certainly help you do that migration or that development very securely today than that you could have, you were challenged with years ago.
For any security issue, even though Trend Micro has this complete end-to-end multi-layer solution, if people are interested, I'm also assuming that, okay, even though you don't necessarily need to use all our suite, here, try out this for this particular area. Maybe you're more worried about the endpoint. Maybe you're more worried today about your cloud solution. I am sure the Trend can say, okay, we'll deploy it in this niche. We can share with you our other tools in the future, and we can make sure that our solution can seamlessly fit in with what you've got now. Probably some method or trials or programs you can look at to say, if you think you're catching everything, why don't you try using our solution for a little bit, and you'll see what you're missing, and then we can have further on discussions.
Yeah, Ron, that's all available from us. We can certainly, whether you want to start small and build out, even with AWS, for example, in the store, Amazon store, you can start small, and you can easily, almost seamlessly, just add all these other components. There's like 7 different areas that we can protect you in your cloud infrastructure, all of which are available through the Azure store and as well as the AWS store. And it's very seamless there. On the other stuff, if you want to have us do a demo, or we can do live demos, we can do online demos, on-demand demos, all of those are also available from us. So we just, as a company, our job is to help you as an organization understand your risks, and then help you develop a strategy and a way to protect your organization, again, from beginning to end, if you want, or from one particular area or not. We have the capability to help you.
This is so informative, a little bit scary too, but that's probably a good thing. I think when you look at some of your comments, and I'm trying to summarize some of the key takeaways, there are some low-hanging fruit that everyone can do. One is discontinue and upgrade your Windows 7, Windows XP applications. If it's not being supported, you're going to have to bite the bullet, tell your CEO, CIO saying you don't want to get stuck with an 8 or 9 figure bill when it should be 5 or 6 figures now by just doing it. You should just deal with it. All CEOs nowadays are much more aware of the importance of technology. You want to stay out of the headlines. The second thing you mentioned, which again is even easier, is just implement multi-factor authentication, recognize that zero trust, always never trust, always verify. Yep. It's fine. Everyone's used to it. Even on my phone. I always get, whenever I log in we use Office 365, I have to type in my 6-digit text. It's a little bit of a pain, but no big deal. You want to do this because it's very simple. And the other thing that, again, is relatively low-hanging fruit is what you mentioned about misconfigurations. Take advantage of Trend's tool just to make sure that your cloud accounts are correctly configured. Those are 3 relatively simple, putting aside like upgrading from Windows 7 or XP. Those are relatively simple tasks that can be done to make sure that you've eliminated the low-hanging fruit that cyber criminals can take advantage of today. And the other thing that I encourage people, when you've got time to take a more strategic look, this is what you want to do. I talk to so many CIOs, CSOs, they can never hire enough security professionals. It is next to impossible for you, even if you're part of Goldman Sachs, GM, the US government, I mean, it's like next to impossible to try and replicate the expertise that John and his team have there. And you really don't want to do that, because even if you're, again, like a Fortune 500 company, the advantage you get from leveraging companies of the size and scale of Trend Micro is that they see so many different organizations, they see consumers, enterprise, and they're all common threat vectors that even, again, amongst the largest employer organizations, you're not going to see as much. And they're going to be more effective. And we encourage people even to complement your existing security team to at least take advantage and at least consider John and his team's solutions, because we want everyone in the Angelbeat community to come to our seminars, make your organizations more secure, more flexible, have you become a rock star in your company, get promoted, make more money because you've kept the CEO out of the headlines. He doesn't need to explain why he didn't implement multi-factor authentication, which is like a no-cost program. Just got to overcome a little bit of employee resistance. Why he didn't do that, and why someone was able to use some password hacking tools to figure out ways, as you mentioned before, credential attacks. Lots of easy ways to do things. Keep checking in with Angelbeat. We're so appreciative of the support of experts like John to share with the Angelbeat community how you can always stay one step ahead of the hackers. I'll look forward to seeing John at one of our upcoming Angelbeat events in Denver, probably in 2022. May not be in 2021. We'll just see how things go. But continue to look to our Angelbeat channel for all these great insights. If you want follow-up with John or any one of his colleagues, you can go to trendmicro.com, or just as easily go to Angelbeat. It's hashtag Angelbeat, hashtag trendmicro to get the insights you need, or contact me and we'll take care of it for you. Any other closing thoughts, John?
Yeah, I think, part of the whole process, Ron, is also education, which is what we've been doing today. And we offer tons of information, whether it's the day-to-day stuff we do on our blog or whether it's our research reports that we publish regularly. People should be reading those and listening to the podcasts and what have you. But that will also help them understand what is going on today, tomorrow, in the future. We're even publishing something around 2030, what we're going to see in 2030. So we also do the futurist stuff as well, besides the day-to-day. So always happy to join you, Ron, and on the Angelbeat stuff and to talk about these topics, because it's, like I said, it's very important. People have to understand, they have to realize what is going on before they can actually take action about and protect themselves. All
right. Well, thank you again, John. I'm going to end this now, and stay safe and take advantage of all the experts that Angelbeat puts you in front of. Bye-bye now, everyone.